Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome along to round 8 of the PSGL F4 Championship here in Mexico at the Circuit de Hermanos Rodriguez. I hope I pronounced that more or less right. And we are here for another round of PSGL F4 after I sadly had to miss last week's race in China. We are here for a wet qualifying, and with we, I mean myself. My name is Felix, and I'm once again joined by Jake. Good evening.
Yeah, evening. I'm making a habit of attending every Monday evening. That's a dangerous habit to get into. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. We had a good race at China last week. Not quite the chaos of Baku the week before, but still a pretty entertaining race. And it looks like we're in for a one-shot quali potentially here in Mexico based on what I'm hearing, because it might be drying up come the end of qualifying, which is exactly what we had in your last commentary at Baku.
Yeah, I mean, Baku then provided us with some great excitement, some great chaos as well, in a, what is odd about it, a dry race. And we still saw so many cars making errors here and there, and especially towards the end. You never knew what would happen next, and I hope today is going to be no different, as we saw kart racer slightly running away with his championship in the last couple of rounds. Once again, a race win for him last week. That is his second race win within the last 4 races and his 4th podium in a row. And would be nice if you could update us about that race last week, because obviously I wasn't there.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining one. Sadly for Ruti Hullet, he didn't finish the race. I think he was involved in a collision early on after a poor qualifying. But it was a really good titanic battle to the end between Kart Racer and Slash for the win, with Kart Racer just coming out on top. I still think back to that race and think Slash went for the move on the penultimate lap. He probably should have waited and charged up his battery a bit more, but easy to say afterwards, of course. And it was a really good battle behind as well for the final podium spot, which went to Marcel in the Aston Martin, who I don't see in the grid tonight, so he's obviously not here. But yeah, it was a really good race. It wasn't quite Baku, as I said before, but it was still very exciting, and it was fully dry, which already we haven't got in this round. And in fact, someone mentioned in the chat, every 2 rounds we seem to get a wet one. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So please definitely tune in for Jeddah, because that's going to be mental.
Yeah, wet race in Jeddah is not anything you would want to miss. I would be surprised though. But, you know, the pattern suggests that it's going to work out like that. And we see the first couple of times rolling in, more and more drivers are starting to, you know, get a grip in this quali session, get into a nice rhythm. But it's all going to change once that rain clears off and we have a dry track towards the end. And it might be similar to Baku, you know. You want to cross the line as the last car at the last possible point in time, but that won't always work. And we saw in Baku that someone, I can't quite remember who it was, but someone definitely took pole, who was one of the first drivers who actually set a lap in the dry conditions. So it doesn't always matter that much if you're stuck behind another car.
Yeah, I believe it was Ruti Hullet, because it was an Alfa Romeo 1-2, and the top 2 didn't change in the race despite the million things that happened. They definitely weren't 1 and 2 all the way from the start to the end, I can tell you that. But that was the way they finished. It'd be interesting to see. It doesn't look quite as dry as it did at Baku 2 weeks ago. So the question is, will we actually get onto the dry tyres by the end? Is the question. It does look like it may have stopped raining though. I want to say I'm never the best at telling the weather.
Yeah, I think the rain has stopped, and we still got 10 minutes left on the clock, and it's now dependent on how quickly this track will dry up. Maybe it's a good use that some of those guys are out there setting their lap times, getting into a rhythm. On the other hand, they might, you know, misjudge the timing then to have enough time left on the clock once they leave the pit lane for their last final attempt. But if the track dries up quickly now, we might see even 2 dry laps from every driver.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that the drivers who are probably going for it a little bit more in this early stage, of the drivers maybe slightly further down the championship with a little bit less to think about, and just maybe going for a bit of fame, seeing their name at the top of the screen. Although I definitely think in Towers' case, he's shown in recent races he's got very good pace. It just hasn't quite hooked it up on a consistent basis. But of course, he did have that podium in Baku 2 weeks ago.
It's always a boost of confidence once you reach that top 3 step there, otherwise known as the podium, which is always the desired place to be at the end of a race. But of course you would want to win a race as well, especially if you see that you have got the pace. And one driver who definitely has got the pace is Kart Racer, who just put in a new fastest lap, but it more or less just feels like a bit of a practice session right now in real FF1. Usually you can't pay attention too much to the lap times. Everyone's just doing their own thing, trying to get into rhythm, trying to get to know the track more and more. But I'm pretty sure most of these drivers know the track really, really well by now. Otherwise they wouldn't be in this F4 division without not knowing the track very well.
No, and actually, thank you for someone who jogged my memory from last week. Towers actually span out the lead last week at China. So yeah, I knew that he had a good race last week up to a point. Unfortunately, I think he span out the final corner, if memory serves me correctly. Easily done at China. You want to maximise the speed out of the final corner as much as possible. And he just overcooked it a little bit as he was pulling away from the rest of the field. It was worth pointing out. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on, maybe for race wins in his closing stage of the season. And yeah, it was a great show of pace from him.
We have 2 very brave Ferrari-powered cars out on track. It is Lewis in the Haas who was first to put on the slick tyres and to go out onto the track. You can see he's had a lot of understeer, but the track seems to be drying more and more now. And Stefan also went out onto the dry tyres. Probatogs as well on the way down to turn 4. Ruti as well. And now Liam and Daniel are following that decision. Tales and Yugoslavia now as well. Looks like the drivers are willing to take a bit of a risk now in order to maybe have that 1 extra lap towards the end on the dry tyres. And the first one to start a lap will be Lewis, who has just crossed the line now for not only his first lap on the slicks, but also his first lap in this quali session in general.
Yeah, I was just about to mention as well, if you don't recognise the names Stefan and Liam, VAR Stefan and NLR Liam, I believe they are making their debuts tonight. They are new additions to the league. So Stefan, one of the first to make that call, brave on his debut, but we'll see what happens. And the track does look like it's ready, but there's still a few dodgy moments, particularly on board with Lewis. I'm seeing still a few areas of the track that aren't fully dry yet, so the lap times will get faster and faster. It won't be quite one-shot quality that we had in Baku. It looks like it's going to be a little bit more. We're going to get 2 attempts at it, but if what was said in the chat is true, a lot of these drivers might have wet setups on for the race, so we just see how those setups cope in these dry conditions.
Yeah, Lewis seems to be not too confident right now on the track. You saw him, especially through the X section, taking it a bit more careful than he probably usually would have done, just in order to make sure that the car does not end up in the wall. And he sets the first dry time of a 1:19.8. I'm pretty sure that won't be the last new provisional pole position time that we have seen this evening, as maybe even Stefan can take that to a new level. Yes, he can. 1:19.3 for the Ferrari driver who is on his debut here tonight, just like you mentioned. But I'm pretty sure that will be just a brief moment, as no, Probatox doesn't beat it. Slots in into P2.
No, but the other debutant, Liam, is about to topple his time and go into provisional pole. It was interesting, actually, as I was following Stefan round. DRS was only just enabled as he was in the final sector, so a lot of his later lap times, they will actually get the benefit of being able to use the DRS, which some of the early drivers wouldn't have, as Daniel now goes quickest, but that time is going to keep changing, because now Towers beats it by over a tenth.
And Francesco is on a good lap as well. And he will be the new provisional pole sitter with a 117.5, and I think that has got to be one of the first actual comparable lap times, because he had the DRS all track long, or lap long I should rather say. Nico also out on his lap in the final sector, and his Ferrari, a very weird section of the track, I would say. I mean, it's just, you know, you can't really overtake through there. It's pretty slow. It kind of, you know, slows all that flow that you've had through that S section down quite a lot. And Nico takes pole by 7/10 for the moment. But yeah, I think Mexico, even though it's really nice with that baseball stadium we have here, and especially in real life, the crowd cheering their drivers on, especially Sergio Perez, you saw in the previous years, and the podium celebrations always look very nice on TV. But I think the track is not considered as one of the best, I would say.
No, it kind of reduces your overtaking opportunities really to the first sort of 4 or 5 corners of the circuit. You're kind of pretty much in follow mode for the rest of the track. So and you kind of like, personally, I do prefer the tracks where you've got more overtaking opportunities, because you have that element of surprise. You sort of you don't think, oh well, once it gets to turn 1, that's going to be really be a big opportunity. You've got to be on your guard as a driver all the way through the circuit if there are opportunities. Whereas in this section, unless someone makes a horrific mistake, you'd be very unlikely going to see many overtakes.
Yeah, and gotta say, Daniele, who is our current provisional pole sitter, has left it very late. I mean, he's got 2:35 left now. It should be enough, but he won't have that, you know, that big of a gap to the deadline in terms of crossing the line. I mean, we've got 2:20 left on the clock. He now has to go inside his garage, switch the tires, go back out again, and he has that entire train of cars of 17 other cars ahead. I take Slash out of there though, because he is quite far up the road already. And same with, is that Provatox? No, it's not. It's who's that? Diogo Silva. Sorry. No, it's not. Who is that? Is that Rodas? Rodas. All right. That was tougher to find than I thought. Rodas and Slash, who are well in front of the other drivers. And we've only got 1:30 left on the clock, and Nico is still in the pits. Daniele is coming out now. Will Nico actually make it?
They're going to have to get a move on as well, because they're going to have Slash starting his lap quite near to them as well. So, I mean, they're going to have to get a move on. Their tyres might not be where they want them, because they're going to have to just step on it. Nico and Daniele, sorry, they might just make it. They might be all right. I've had a bit of a niggling cough for the last week, and it chose to rear itself there. But Slash is the first one to go, and as we saw at Baku, that might not be the worst thing. And I saw last week just how quick Slash is, up to 4th in the championship now. It could be a very good lap if he hooks it all together. But as we saw in the previous runs, it's very easy to invalidate, and this is really not the time you want to do that.
No, it's now about finding the right balance in between pace and risk, and also not invalidating, because then you just throw it all away. But obviously you can't be too careful, otherwise you're going to lose that entire lap time that you will need in order to take pole position in this qualifying session. But it looks like Slash has kept it quite tidy so far. It looked like he kind of backed off here and there in order to not invalidate. which I can completely understand because that is the worst
Oh
thing you want to do.
no!
And he just track extends on the outside at the braking zone. He won't make it across the line in time to set another lap, and that is Slash at a maximum of P14. Toxic Tomato is right behind Francesco, so he's not going to have the greatest time in his lap because he looked very, very close to that rear end of the Mercedes.
Yeah, there's 3 cars following very closely down the main straight there. That's not too ideal at all. Rodaz across the line. He's going to go on to provisional pole, but for how long? Slinky now beats it by 7 tenths. Who is going to get the best lap at
Daniele
the
has
end?
invalidated. Daniele won't be in the fight for pole position. He has invalidated.
Kart Racer only good enough for second as Daniel sticks it onto provisional pole. So Kart Racer didn't have the best lap either. And where's he going to end up as the 2 Aston Martins slot in behind? Who else is on a good lap? Nico is on a pretty decent lap. Francesco coming around the final corner. Where's he going to go? Rooty Hullet goes second. Francesco goes P5.
And now there's only Liam, Stefan, both jump up the field, but not enough. And here comes Nico. Can he take pole? No, he can't. He puts his Ferrari on the second row of the grid. And I tell you what, there are 2 drivers that will be hating this quali session right now by the name of Daniele and Slash, who invalidated on the outside before the hairpin in the stadium section, and Daniele even way before that. That must have been within that first chicane of turns 1, 2 and 3, but he will start from 17th, and Daniel takes a comfortable pole position with that.
Yeah, I didn't really keep much of an eye on him, if I'm honest, but, you know, P5 in a championship, he's had a few good results this season, and he's always got a lot of pace in him, and he really hooked it up there, and Rooty Hullet's showing that he's pretty good when the pressure's on, because another top 2 for him. Nico P3, Slinky 4th, Kart Racer 5th. I don't think he'll be too disappointed with that, considering the position he's in, and I think it's worth well done to Stefan on his debut, P6. That's a very good showing, and I believe, and Liam, the other debutant, P12, not too bad from either of them, really.
Yeah, it looks like he has kept his head cool at the end of this session, and yeah, it's a grid that probably won't represent how the pace will be inside that race, but it's really good actually, I think, because it kind of create some excitement in terms of raw pace, because if it would have been just the exact same conditions as they will be in the race, I don't think we would have had as much of a mixed up grid. And it is looking dry, but if I look at the top, that cloud looks really dark, and on the F1 games that could mean some rain is on the way.
Yeah, the drivers didn't really say too much in terms of the exactly what the weather's going to be like, but they didn't sound too happy. But we'll see if that was just for qualifying, and if the rain does stay away for the race. And a few complaints about the traffic in qualifying. That's a problem when you go from a wet to dry session and everyone's rushing to get out of the end. It's inevitable, really, that a few drivers will end up just too close together. It's kind of just reminds me of every real life recent qualifying session at Monza.
Yeah, but those were just due to the drivers wanting that slipstream and rather not setting a lap than giving any other driver some slipstream. And here it was down to the track drying up right at the end. And even though we had more time, the drivers had more time to set a dry lap here than they had in Baku, it still felt very similar to the Baku quali session.
Yeah, sometimes when you got a bit more time, you can almost be a bit too casual with it and leave yourself not enough time to get round. Thankfully, everyone did get round and managed to at least have a go at setting a time. But for Daniele and Slash, they've got a lot of work to do from the back of a grid now.
And we are only a few seconds away as the lights are coming on for round 8 of this PSGL F4 season. And the lights are out and we are underway. It looks like Daniel got away quite well. Is he able to defend himself from Ruti, who had a bit of a slow start? And there goes Nico flying past the Alfa Romeo driver already. Slinky is having a little look on the outside. It looks like the drivers are very spread out. It looks like Slash had a horrible start at the back. There goes Nico trying to go around the outside of race leader Daniel. He's got the inside for turn 2 though. They're side by side. And it looks like Nico's been pushed out wide. And that has compromised Daniel's exit. And there goes Ruti Holland past both of those guys into turn 4. Can he keep the lead? Yes, he can. And there goes Nico once again for another try against the AlphaTauri driver of Daniel. Gets pushed out wide once again and has to track extend, and now he has to back out, and instead of P1 it is P3 for Nico, and Ruti has recovered from a bad start within a span of 3 corners.
Yeah, really dramatic start there, and Ruti Hullet, the beneficiary of 2 drivers focusing way more on each other than on him. But yeah, further down, really good to see the drivers keeping it clean, because it's so easy to knock a front wing off in that turn 1 with so many cars coming at it from different angles. But all 18 drivers still driving in anger. And we've got Francesco further down, who is he disconnected from the lobby or something? He's ghosting. I'm not too sure what's happening there, but Ruti Hullet leads the field after lap 1, but he hasn't really been able to build up any kind of a lead.
Not really. Only 3 tenths in between him and Daniel in P2 at the moment. Let's have a quick look at the tyres, but I think, yes, everyone is on the hard compound, and Daniel is really sitting very close to that Alfa Romeo rear wing with that Italian flag on its back. And it looks like he's willing to take the lead that he felt he deserved after he tried to go around the outside through turns 1 and 3 on the opening lap of Nico, where Nico didn't give him as much room as Daniel probably would have liked him to. It looks like the gaps are not really getting that big within the first 1 or 2 laps. Everyone is still within that 1 second window of the car ahead, which is obviously crucial for the upcoming lap now. Actually, it's not, because the DRS detection point is on this lap. So on the main straight and the second straight, it will be DRS enabled from next lap onwards, or on lap 4 I should rather say, because that detection point is here, right here, before the last actual braking zone.
Yeah, and to be fair to Ruti Hullet, he's really getting a hammer down. He nearly got the second gap that he wanted. DRS, of course, now enabled. But of course, this long straight will pull Daniel just closer to him without him really having to try. See if we've got any moves further down. Sarsby is having a potential go at Liam, but didn't go for it in the end into turn 1, and all the drivers just slotting in behind. And I was going to say, it's very rare to see, but everyone all still backed up close together, and in fact it's Nico that's actually lost a little bit of time in the last few corners.
Yeah, Nico was really close to the back of Daniel once he went out of that last corner, but it looks like Daniel has got a very low downforce setup, because he gained quite a lot of time, not only on Nico behind but also on Ruti ahead, who was nearly a second away from him at the start of those 2 long straights. And now that gap has come down to around 6 tenths before. Now it's extending a little bit after the S section, so that suggests that Daniel's really running a very aggressive low downforce setup just to have that straight line speed that he might need, as Liam on his debut picks up a penalty after just 3 laps.
Yeah, that was something I quite enjoyed not seeing in China, was there was no penalties for corner cutting, but Mexico I think is just a lot more of a magnet for that kind of thing, so I suspect that won't be the last one we see. And in true typical car, in fact, Daniel going to go for a move to turn 1? No, he's not, but like you said, he really closed in. He's got such a benefit with that rear wing open. His car's clearly very focused on straight line speed, and he's going to be Ruti Hullet under a lot of pressure if Daniel can stay close enough through the twisty section. But I was about to say, true to form, Kart Racer is conserving his battery a lot better than everyone around him.
He probably knows that when it matters, he needs that battery charge, and at the moment, it doesn't really matter just that much as it would towards the end of this race. We're only on lap 4, nothing's going to be won just yet. but more towards the end. You can see how much Ruti is gaining in that middle sector through the S's, but you can also see how much Daniel gains back. I mean, it's more or less equal then in terms of time gained and lost, but with that DRS that helps Daniel even more, and he wants to retake that first position that he had when he left his pole position grid slot for the start of the race, and he tried to defend it against Nico with quite an aggressive style. Nico won't be too happy with that, but as it stands, he's still ahead of Nico, but dropped down to P2, and he does not want to see that rear wing of the Alfa Romeo for the remaining 32 laps.
There was a move further down from Francesco, past Salisbury for P11. What was interesting is Aston Martin didn't have his rear wing open, and I believe everyone was within a second, so I don't know whether he just forgot to deploy it or whether he did briefly drop out the 1 second window, but nevertheless, the Aston Martin down a place and Francesco up to P11. And to be fair to Francesco, he's been very quick in recent rounds. He just seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time where collisions are concerned.
At the moment, Slinky is catching up a little bit. 2-car race ahead. Current championship leader. Looks like Fleddy has dropped out of that 1 second window to Lewis ahead. And I'm wondering if Slinky is actually willing to make a move. Look at the amount of battery charge Slinky has got. 97%. He's even better than Kart Racer at the moment in terms of battery charge, but that might change within just a matter of a lap or even a sector maybe. And Daniel gets closer and closer every single lap, but he does not want to pass just yet. If he wants to pass, he probably wants to move without any time lost, because I'm pretty sure he's feeling confident and very comfortable sitting in that slipstream plus the DRS of Ruti, and it prevents him from a threat from behind with the Ferrari of Nico.
With all the field bunched up, we were wondering where potentially the first sort of gap might occur. It looks like Fleddy might be the one who's just getting cut adrift from Lewis in front of him, and that's crucial for those behind Fleddy that have aspirations of maybe finishing in the top 5 or 6 this evening, because they're going to get cut apart if Fleddy can't get back within a second. And you can see he's using his battery charge. He knows how important it is, as Toxic Tomato has gone round through the middle part of a lap, and I think he may have damaged his front wing, but I haven't got the best view. Actually, no, might have escaped by damage, but he has dropped to the rear of the field. But I tell you what, Daniel looks, is he that a little bit closer on this occasion? It looks like he was coming out the corner, but then I think Ruti Hullitz used a bit of battery charge to fend off any attack. In fact, Daniel's actually saving quite a bit in comparison to the race leader, so Daniel's sitting very nicely in P2 right now.
He is, and he has control over when he wants to pass, because I think if he would have wanted to, he would have easily flew past him on the main straight already, because he's so...
It goes Lewis on Stefan up the inside. That was a bit of a scruffy manoeuvre. I think he's made it stick unless Stefan comes back up the inside, but no, he doesn't. Lewis, kind of a bit of an opportune in place, but he got a great run out of turns 2 and 3, and Lewis up to P6 with a nice move. And importantly for him now, we've got to try and stay within that 1 second of Slinky so he doesn't come under attack. And Tellez as well has made a move past Fleddy for P8, and that's, I think, a crucial move, because I feel like Tellez has got quite a bit of pace, and you can see he's already caught up to Stefan in front.
Yeah, it's always nice if you can bring a car within in between you and your rival, who might be just that little bit quicker behind, and you have a bit of a roadblock then behind you. Even though I don't want to insult Stefan, but he might be used from Lewis' perspective as a roadblock, and once you realize the car behind is quicker than you, you would want to get as many cars as possible in between you and the faster driver, as Provatox has just passed Sabe for P13, even though Sabe is trying to come back at him has a very low battery charge and is not able to fight back just yet, and has to drop down into P14.
Yeah, and Daniele setting the fastest lap of the race. He's really trying to just fight his way through the field. He's done well so far, gained 5 positions from where he started. He's now on the back of Daniele, and the top 12 are in this lead group train. So Daniele, although position-wise he's not doing too well, he's not actually in too bad of a position, and if he keeps up his pace, he may pick up a few more positions as of yet as well. So it's a good start for Daniele. You can't really do anything too heroic, especially when there hasn't really been many crashes in front of you.
Oh, and that was a slight mistake. Oh, and contact in between Liam and Francesco. Liam lost the rear end coming out of that stadium section and then kind of had to rejoin very weirdly, and Francesco just took the corner normally, and very unlucky for Liam. He's dropped down 4 positions because of that. It was very unlucky, but no way that you could blame Francesco for that, as Sabi now tries to get back that position that he lost on the previous lap. Fair enough from both drivers. They give each other the room, and it's 3 wide now coming out of turn 3 all the way down to turn 4 as Provatox is trying to hold on, but it looks like instead of just losing 1 position, Provatox loses 2, and Liam regained some of those positions that he just lost because of that slight contact with Francesco. So he just went back up from P14 to P12, and Druti has spun through the S section. I don't know if there was contact or not, but he has spun around, has to rejoin the track now, and he's all the way down into P14, maybe even 15, yes. And that has gone horribly wrong within seconds.
Unfortunately, I didn't catch what happened to Ruti, and unfortunately for him as well, it's robbed him of the race lead. It was all getting very close between the top 4. That doesn't mean there was contact.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. Yeah, Nico. Just pure slipstream and DRS is enough to take the lead. But maybe that was a tactical decision. Look at the battery chart that Daniel has got. That is insane. And we saw what kind of straight line speed Daniel had so far. So I'm pretty sure that was a tactical decision. Just more or less waving him through, saying, alright, the guy ahead spun, so why don't you go ahead, give me DRS, give me slipstream, so I can keep managing my ERS deployment.
Yeah, and real shame for Ruti. Like I said, we don't know. I didn't see what happened to him because there was kind of battling going on elsewhere, and that's the unfortunate thing. Sometimes you get drawn into something, and something happens when you're not expecting it. But for Ruti, it's a real blow for him. He didn't finish the race last week, and it's looking like his championship aspirations, which looked very real a few weeks ago, are just slowly falling away from him.
Shame to see, as we obviously won a very exciting championship fight. Kart Racer has been promoted to P3 because of that. Ruti, for just to add to the spin that he had, picks up his first penalty of the evening as well, which would now drop him to dead last. And that is just Formula 1 for you right there. It can all just get thrown away within split seconds, as Ruti just took back P15 at least, but he'll have a lot of work to do now.
I'll tell you what, I thought I could have foreseen Ruti Hullerton / fighting this evening. I didn't think it'd be over P15, mind you. They're much better drivers than that, and on pure pace they would be, I think, firmly inside the top 10, but I think Ruti, because of that spin, and / because of his qualifying, really, have found themselves really out of position, which is a shame to see.
Not that much going on, just a typical race so far. I think it's going to be the second stint where most of the stuff will happen.
Oh, we've got a spin for...
Yeah. In the back through the S section. And it looks like Nico's had a bit of a poor exit, and I wonder if Daniel was actually willing to get past, but I'm pretty sure he's not, even though he's gaining and gaining, and he is going past.
Oh, so Daniel retakes the lead from Nico. We've got potentially a overtake further down. Francesco on the inside of Fleddy for P8, and yep, nice move down the inside. Really textbook move at turn one here in Mexico. And Francesco slowly but quietly making his way through the field as well up to P8. Daniele, you can see in the background, desperately trying to get in that DRS window, because I think once he's in that DRS window, he'll get dragged along as well. And it is 10 cars at the moment, you would say, being dragged along in this lead fight.
Yeah, even though there's a bit of a gap now in between Kart Racer and Slinky, he's still well inside that DRS window that he needs.
Yeah, Slinky doesn't strike me as someone who's currently panicking. He's got a lot of battery use, and I think if he was in real danger of losing that DRS, he would use some veil. But he literally looks very handily placed right now, Slinky, in that train of cars. And like I said, beginning of the season, we were amazed at how quick the two McLarens were. So we know how good they can be on their day. So it's really, this is an interesting fight at the moment, as we've got yellow flag in sector 3. That's Provatox having a spin. Rooty Hullett's found his way up to P12, so he's firing his way back through the field and draining his battery with it as well. Probably a bit of frustration inside that Alfa Romeo cockpit right now. But you know, a safety car or a few peculiar things happen later on. He's not out of it just yet. We'll have to, and we'll have to hear after the race whether that was a spin that was all for his own doing or whether there was some contact.
Yeah, currently 11 seconds in between Ruti and race leader Daniel, plus that 3-second time penalty that Ruti has picked up. And it looks like it is P1 to P10 all being within one big train, and then we've got P11 to P14 being a bit spread out more or less. Meanwhile, Liam picks up his second penalty already.
Yeah, that's a sinking feeling when you're on 2 penalties and you're not even at halfway stage of the race. You start driving within yourself as well then, because you're scared of picking up more penalties. So it's a cause and effect really. It's not just the penalties, it's how it impacts your driving going forward. I often find when you do get penalties early on, you often leave a bit more margin than you really should be doing, and therefore you'll lose a few tenths of a second.
Speaking of losing a few tenths, Stefan nearly dropped out of that 1 second window, but got back into it now. Was about 9.5 tenths behind Lewis ahead, and that would have been a big factor if one of those guys drops out of that 1 second window. It usually causes some kind of chain reaction, because other drivers obviously see that you lost the DRS and decide to pass you, and that will cost you even more time. So staying within that 1 second is crucial.
Yeah, just looking at the various battery usage of those inside the top 10. Daniel has 100% race leader, which is I'm assuming that's not a glitch on my screen. No, he's just doing very good at saving his battery charge.
I mean, that just underlines his pace tonight, I think. Just because he's not really using any, and still he's leading without being under pressure or too much. But obviously that can change once we arrive at the pit stop phase.
Just keeping an eye on Rooty Hullett. I don't know what's going on sector 3. It's like Starby's having a bit of a mare further down, but yeah, Rooty Hullett on the back of Liam now, trying to take another position. He'll be happy to be back up to P11, but he'll have a sinking feeling about the margin in front of him as Sarby retires in the pit lane. And you know, with particularly the manic races we see in F4, it's very rare that we would get to this sort of stage, and there's so many cars still in the lead group. So there's a lot of drivers in this group that will fancy their chances if they can call the strategy right.
Yeah, Ruti now at 6 seconds of penalties. Plus, he's down in P12, so his race has gone downhill quite a lot since he had that spin. There's the retired car of Sabi, who luckily decided to retire in the pit lane, so there was no risk of an artificially deployed safety car or virtual safety car, which possibly would have changed the outcome.
Yeah, it's not what we'd want to see, but thankfully he did the right thing. We're getting towards, obviously, all the drivers starting on the hard tyres, so there's no difference in that regard. It's just over when drivers will feel they can pit for medium tyres, and we typically see a few drivers go a bit early and try and get the undercut, but then we see how much that costs them later on. So, in terms of a pit stop window, what would you be thinking? Maybe around lap 19, 20?
Yeah, I think somewhere around that. I think you can play around it a little bit depending on where you are in the field and what you'd like to do with the tyres. And I think Daniel has a really comfortable position right now because he knows he has the straight line speed, he has the battery to overtake or to react to other drivers. And if he drops behind someone, it wouldn't be the biggest problem just because he has that incredible straight line speed that he has shown so far, without even the help of the overtake button that he's still got available, with still way more than 90%.
Yeah, he's in a very strong position right now, and it's likely that someone behind him will pit before he does, but like you say, he's got that straight line speed to react to it. So he's really holding all the cards right now, and to be fair, all of the top... Well, you got Daniel, Kart Racer and Slinky, who are doing a great job saving their battery use. Nico and Lewis have a little bit less, and of course Lewis is the only one in this group with a penalty. So that's going to be, I'm sure that's going to be playing on his mind as well. He's just got a great run out of that last turn, but can't get close enough to make a move on Slinky. But he wasn't far off, to be fair. It was a really nice run from the Haas. But these drivers now it almost feels like playing a waiting game, waiting for the first driver to blink, and Slinky is the driver that does it.
Very early, lap 17. He decides to go for a massive undercut. Same with Thales.
Yep.
Usual pit stop. All went well. Even though it kind of looks like Thales has gained some time somehow on the McLaren driver. Look at how close he is.
Yeah, that's definitely looks like he's gained a bit there, and it could be could give Slinky something to think about if he can get his tyres heated up quicker than the McLaren driver. Guess we're gonna find out now, and we'll see who reacts next time around. Of course, when a few drivers pit in a big train of cars, it does start to create a few breaks in the train. So we'll see if anyone does start to lose touch. Stefan is hovering around a second behind Lewis, but I'm suspecting here we're going to see a few other drivers in. But it is very early, like you say, and maybe they will struggle on those mediums in the last few laps, and they're hoping that they gain enough now, but it's not so much of a detriment further on. Daniel, Nico stay out, Kart Racer stays out, Stefan pits, so does Fleddy and Daniele, so quite a few drivers reacting here. And be interesting because I think Towers was behind a couple of those guys. See if he's jumped them or not.
Stefan being the leader of that group. Let's see where he ends up. But I think he's gonna be behind Slinky and Thales.
Towers has gained a lot there with the undercut.
Yeah, he has. And look at the gap as well. Looks like the undercut has worked an absolute treat for those two. Look at that gap. It's more than a second.
Yeah, and they'll still be getting their tyres heated up as well. So Yeah, it just shows how powerful the undercut is here. And if you're Daniel, Nico, and Car Racer, do you need to pit now? Is it because stay out too much longer? Are they going to get overtaken as well?
Problem is they don't have the biggest overview, and obviously the race engineer on the F1 game is pretty much useless. Tallis picks up a penalty.
Daniel pits.
Yeah, so does Nico.
Car Racer stays out.
Yeah, with Nico. Oh, did Nico just hit Daniel?
Looked potentially like it. He hasn't had his front wing changed, so if he's got any damage, it's he's just going to have to deal with it. But where does Slinky come out in relation to these guys? That's going to be the interesting thing now. Has Slinky leapfrogged all of them?
I think he has. Look at that. Yes, Slinky has taken the lead.
And Towers is going to be in front of Daniel as well.
Those two, by just pitting 2 laps earlier, look at the massive amount of time those two have gained, and Slinky has a perfect situation for him right now. If I look at his ERS, his battery charge, look at how much battery he used. Same with Thales though, and Daniel has got quite a lot left, but still he has to find a way past Thales and Slinky as well, with Nico sitting right behind him. Look at how close Nico is now.
I was about to say, he's probably looking more in his mirrors than in front of him right now, because it looks like Nico's got his tyres revved up a lot quicker, and he's got a double Ferrari attack to worry about, because Stefan's right there as well. But this is the key now. How much Kart Racer's really drained his battery on this lap? He knows this is absolutely crucial, and if this hasn't been a good out lap, Kart Racer could be behind most of this group of cars.
I think he will. I think he might even be behind Fleddy. And that would be massive for the championship. We'll see now. Slinky will easily be up ahead. Let's see. Let's go on board with Kart Racer. Where does he come out in comparison to all the others? Is he going to be ahead of Daniel? Oh, it's all so close, but I think he's going to lose the position. And is Nico able to find a way past him as well? Yes, he is. And only just behind Nico. Kart Racer must have had a brilliant in-lap.
He did, but watch out. He's got Stefan on much warmer tyres right behind him. Is Stefan going to make a move? Is he going to have the confidence to do so? No, he doesn't go for it. Oh, that's crucial for Kart Racer. He stays in front of Stefan, and ultimately he's got a lap pressure tyres, and he's actually minimised the amount of time he's lost.
Kart Racer really must have been on the way for a new fastest lap of the race or something, because he barely lost any time. I mean, he was right behind Nico and Daniel, and he came out alongside Daniel and only just lost the position to Nico coming down into turn 1, while all the others lost at least amount of a second or two within a single lap in comparison to the others. He must have had a great in-lap.
Yeah, that's really helped him in this race. And we're talking about battery saving earlier. Now everyone is pretty much drained most of their battery. Daniel again keeping a bit left but everyone else, and the top two have got nothing left, and Towers closing right up to the back of Slinky, but of course has that penalty now to think about. So, but it's up to Daniel now. He needs to get back within a second, and well, looks like he's already done that with the fresher tyres that those two have on. Slinky and Towers haven't, although they have track position, they haven't really built up any sort of an advantage, and you get the feeling those mediums will be crying by the end of this race.
I feel like Daniel's got a bit worried now as he saw that those two guys ahead came out a bit further ahead than he thought, or if he even at all thought that those guys will be ahead, because he had a lot of battery charge left when he left the pits. And now he's also down to around 40%. I mean, that's still a lot more than the top two, but remember, Daniel was the one who had nearly 100% when the first pit stops were made. And now he's down to around 40% and still 6 tenths behind. And look, he's losing time more or less. He's not gaining anything at least. Looks like Thales has got some decent straight line speed as well.
Yeah, Daniel probably isn't too aware of the fact that these two have got a couple of extra laps on their mediums. If he does, I think he just needs to try and play the long game here, if he can. But oh, Daniele's just got a 5-second penalty for corner cutting. What did he do there? That's a bit more than a normal corner cutting penalty. So I wonder if he's gone straight over the chicane at the start of a lap.
I'm not quite sure. Maybe he outbraked himself. Would be possible. I mean, but this race has gone from a very calm one. Let's put it nicely. A very calm one to quite an interesting one, because we have a whole different situation than we had before, where the Slinky and Thales now leading the way. Thales obviously with a penalty, but how much is he willing to fight in order to keep his hopes alive of maybe a podium position? But he seems to be struggling a little bit here and there.
I'll tell you one driver who really didn't benefit. I think Lewis hit the same lap as Kart Racer, and he has dramatically fallen out of his group. He's even behind Rooty Hullet now, and he's pitted again. Has he got damage? He's retired. So I'm not too sure as to what happened there, as I've just seen Rodas. I was just flicking through, and I'm pretty sure Rodas hit a wall coming out the final corner. So not
And
what he needed
Thales
down in
is
P14.
about to lose a position to Daniel, because he had a very poor exit out of turn 3,
Oh!
and Daniel breaks himself. That's an odd mistake. I've not seen that very often from Daniel, especially not in this race where he seemed very dominant. But he just completely outbraked himself. He's down to 20% of ERS, and I really think he's starting to worry at this point of the race, because he had a comfortable lead with 100% of ERS, and now he's in P3 behind two drivers with only 24% left. It's a whole different situation. And it's very odd to see Daniel making a mistake after the move has pretty much started. There was contact! Not in between one, but three drivers. I think Thales hit the rear end of Slinky. That slowed him down. And Daniel was not able to avoid Thales at all, and sent him round completely. And Thales is down all the way into P10.
Well, I've got to say, I was riding on board with Towers there, and is Daniel, is he going to make a move for the lead on Slinky? He's thinking about it, but he doesn't. And wow, Nico came from nowhere to attack Kart Racer and reclaim P3. I think Kart Racer kind of ghosted through him when all that carnage happened, so I don't know if he was just taking the place back fairly, but yeah, that was kind of nowhere when I was on board with Kart Racer. But yeah, I was watching Towers on board, and I have to say that was, I don't know, that was a bit clumsy. He just simply went into the back of Slinky.
I for a second thought that Slinky might go round, but it was a bit of a concertina effect, because everyone was then suddenly very slow, and then Daniel hit the back of Thales with no chance basically to avoid him at all. And now we have another different situation. So it turns out second stint in Mexico isn't as quiet as the first one was, because suddenly we've got a big fight for the race win, with Slinky being on 1% of battery charge, Daniel 30% with DRS. Is he willing to make a move already on lap 26? He's about to take the lead. No, he has a little look on the inside, trying to make Slinky nervous, but Slinky knows that he's keeping his lines very tight through the first three corners, and has enough of a gap to stay ahead on lap 26 with less than 11 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Slinky is leading the way, but where could he possibly save his energy without losing time?
As Rooty Hullet picks up another penalty. Yeah, that was... It's a real shame, really, that we lost a few cars from that leading group. It's a shame about the clumsy accident, but it has now brought a new dynamic in that Slinky doesn't have the protection of Towers. He's now got Daniel right behind him, and I feel like Daniel wants to make this move stick quickly, just because he's probably slightly worried about Nico and Kart Racer behind. He's definitely shown signs that he's panicking, and of course these top four don't have a penalty yet, so they're all they are fighting for track position. This is not a case of letting someone go in front of you because you have a penalty or something like that. They're all fighting away, and is Daniel going to be close enough on this occasion? He's not using his battery, but he might not. Oh, and he's using a bit now. Is he gonna? He's gonna be inside line. Surely it's gonna be a move into turn one. Slinky doesn't really fight it, and Daniel takes the lead. Sorry.
No worries, and he will have the DRS for the second straight as well. And Slinky has no chance but to stay behind. And maybe you'll have to focus on the car behind, which is Nico. He's having a little half-hearted look on the inside of turn 4. Couldn't quite make the move stick, but that was a very odd situation for Slinky. And nobody thought, he wasn't quite sure if Nico wanted to go for it, and I think Nico wasn't sure either what he wanted to do into turn 4, but it definitely cost not only Slinky some time, but also himself. He's now half a second behind the McLaren driver, and so is the McLaren driver behind Daniel, which is definitely not good, not for Nico and neither for Slinky. So that definitely cost some unnecessary time there in that situation, because Nico wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do. He pulled to the inside, braked that little bit later, but then jumped on the brakes a bit more, and then he was not really alongside, but maybe with his front wing, and it's a weird situation for both drivers. But I think it was Nico who created that entire weird situation where none of these two guys knew exactly what to do. And I just want to point out, look at the gap in between P9 and P10. Ruti, by the way, has caught up to that train. He's in P9. But then it's Ruti, and then it's 9 seconds all the way down to Liam in P10, who is on course for his first point in his first race.
Yeah, and look at Stefan as well on his debut, still up in P5. So the debutant's doing very good. Rui Hullet will probably be right now be regretting some, I'm guessing, out of frustration driving, because he's picked up 15 seconds worth of penalties.
15?
So he's clearly been abusing a track limit. He's probably a bit frustrated about what happened earlier. But the thing is, if he'd have just stayed calm, he'd have been right back in contention with this group. But because of his penalties, it's going to be tough for him to score any points now, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I have to find another 3 seconds to the car behind, which is definitely not impossible, but you can't really take a look at the cars ahead. Rodas picks up a penalty.
Surely Nico's got an opportunity here to grab P2.
Nico is very close. Yeah, but he's not using his battery charge because he hasn't got that much. But it looks like the slipstream is working better because he's closer to the McLaren of Slinky than Slinky is to Daniel. But I know that Slinky wants this win. I just know it, and you can see he's desperately trying to get closer again, but he can't just throw his ERS away because Daniel is saving it. He is on a good way to get back up to some solid battery charge in order to defend, and Daniel's straight line speed is allowing that as well without losing too much time. And Slinky just had a little loss of grip coming out of that weird double apex hairpin there. But Slinky, you can see he's trying, he wants that race win, but it looks like Daniel has always just found a way to just be that little bit too far away to prevent an overtaking opportunity from Slinky. And Ruti picks up another penalty.
Not making his job any easier. Slinky as well. Now Slinky's going to be getting to that point where I feel like in a few laps his tyres might start feeling a little bit second rate as well, so he's got that to worry about. He's got Nico and Kart Racer, and I mean, even looking as far down as Slinky's teammate Francesco in P8, no penalties for him. Although he's got Ruti Hullet to worry about, but no move there. Let's say Francesco with no penalties, pretty new tyres. If he can make some progress through a few more cars, Francesco could come into contention for a really good result as well. So both McLarens having a good race here, but I feel like P2 and P8 might not be quite where they finish.
I'm just staying on board with Slinky because you can see how much he's trying. You can see he knows he's only got 6.5 laps left to do it, and he knows it's going to be difficult, and he knows he has to take every corner basically perfect. in order to catch Daniel, in order to get a chance at this race win. And it looks like Car Racer's not really able to be close enough to Nico, as Nico just outbraked himself a little bit. But still, it has gained him some time, and look how close he is to the rear end of that McLaren. Is he close enough to make a move, though, on this main straight? He has the DRS. 3 tenths behind. He's using his battery. Yeah, maybe this time he will go for it, but look at Slinky. He knows. He realizes Nico is using it, so he is using it as well. And maybe that is Nico's plan, to force Slinky into using his battery charge. That was a slight snap of oversteer for Daniel, and that might have opened up the door for Slinky, but no, Daniel is just too far away to actually be under pressure from the McLaren behind. Even though he misses another apex, it looks like Daniel's not too confident with his tyres either. And at this point, you might think that the tyre wear of those 2 more laps that Slinky has done on his mediums might come into play as well.
Yeah, Nico will be watching Daniel sliding around. He might know Slinky's got all the tyres. Nico might be feeling in a pretty good place right now, but he'd prefer not to have Slinky in between him and Daniel, that's for sure. And we're coming up to like 5 laps remaining. This gets really to a tactical point of a race where you sort of may only get 1 or 2 more chances to make an overtake work, and you've really got to plan and execute it perfectly, because if you fail and you drain your battery, it leaves you vulnerable to cars behind.
Yeah, and you can see that Slinky's trying to break the slipstream for the Ferrari of Nico behind. Kart Racer's just sitting back there watching all that stuff unfold ahead of him. We can see that Fleddy is getting closer and closer to Stefan as well. That will be for P5, or actually P6, because of those penalties. And yeah, it's just, I think the main point on the track, the main part of the track where Slinky is losing his chance of an opportunity for an overtake every single lap, is that stadium section. He's always losing 1 or 2 tenths, which cost him dearly, because that prevents him from even being able to, you know, put Daniel under a bit of pressure, you know, pulling to the inside in the braking zone, make him think you'll go for an opportunistic move, just some mind games. But he's not even able to play that, because he's losing too much time in that sector here. And you can see he just lost a tenth into the right hand, and he's losing more and more, and the gap is once again back up to 7 tenths. He's not nailing that stadium section, and that is what's costing him. Gap is back up to 8 tenths, and that's not going to be enough.
No, he just cannot get a good enough run out of the far sector, and that might be the tyres just struggling to stay with him at this stage. But of course, whatever he's got DRS is helping him defend against the cars behind, so it's a bonus in a way that he can stay just about close enough to Daniel. But even though he's not been able to attack, he's still able to defend from those behind him, as Stefan had to fend off Fleddy going into turn 1. It's amazing to see 9 cars so close together with just 4 laps to go, and it really does mean that anything could happen, and this race could still go any way, although I'd like to bet that it won't be Rooty Hull that wins.
It's a bold prediction, but I think the fact of 18 seconds of penalty speaks for your prediction. But if we look at the front, I mean, everyone inside that top 4 would still be able to win the race in theory, but at the moment, and it looks like Rooty has spun.
Rooty, he has.
Once again, it's the S section that catches him out. Oh, and I think, has Slinky lost the DRS? I think he only just stayed within that 1 second window, which is crucial. Otherwise, he might lose the DRS to Daniel, which would probably seal his fate of losing P2 in this race, because Nico is still behind him very closely. And look at Car Racer. He sees his chance. He's trying to get closer. Look at Nico. He completely outbrakes himself. That opens up the door for Car Racer maybe. Out of turn 3. He needs a good exit now. If he wants to make a move, he has to do it now. But he stays behind. He does not use his battery charge that he's got in order to use that mistake. And that might not have been the right decision from Kart Racer.
I would say that's a championship thinking decision. I'd rather keep 10 or 8 points than risk it for 2 more points. That definitely felt like a safety first decision, but we'll see if it pays off. There's still 2 and a bit laps to go, and you get the feeling there's going to be another twist in the tail yet. And despite the fact that Slinky's now done 16 laps on those mediums, Daniel just can't quite shake him off. And this is really crucial for Slinky, helping him keep his P2, is that he's able to stay close enough to Daniel to keep the DRS. He's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, he's now this time didn't lose too much time. Kart Racer is on his way to take P3 with 2 laps to go in this race. He flies past Nico. Flying is a bit of an exaggeration because Nico breaks himself once again. He's gone wide, but he's got the outside line for turn 3 though. They're still alongside it. Kart Racer backs out. Might have been the right decision at this point, and he hasn't been able to go past, even though he's got all that excessive battery charge left. Slinky closer than ever to Daniel. Daniel with 40% of ERS left has 1.5 laps to go to remain in that lead, to pick up those crucial 16 points in the championship, with Kart Racer only being in 4th. And Slinky wants that race win. He's trying. He's driving his heart out, I'm pretty sure. He's using his ERS deployment, but he's just not able to get close enough.
Oh, this is incredible. The 2 drivers we've got fighting it out for the win potentially on the last lap are 2 drivers who haven't got a win this season. We could be about to crown a 7th different winner in 8 races. And who is it going to be? Daniel is absolutely draining his battery. He doesn't want any threat from Slinky behind. And I think by saving his battery, Daniel is not going to be under any threat at all.
Goodness.
Oh, God, that road dazzle.
That
was...
scared everything out of me. My goodness me. I would have... I'd need to have a change of underwear there after that one. And I'm just commentating. So
they have more trust in co-masters than I do.
I just saw that car appear. Oh my goodness. Nico doesn't find a way past either. He had to look in his mirrors rather than trying to set up a move. He's done well to defend from Kart Racer, to be fair. But I think it's going to be Daniel if he holds on in that final sector, which is looking very likely right now. He will take this race win and make it a 7th different winner in our 8th race this season. Daniel around the final couple of corners, around the stadium section for the final time, goes onto the curb on the outside, slightly snaps out of the last corner, but he holds on to win in Mexico ahead of Slinky, who tried everything, but he just couldn't find a way past. Nico holds on ahead of championship leader Kart Racer, who has broken his podium streak of 4 podiums in a row, finishes in 4th place. Francesco picks up 5th on penalties. Stefan on his debut with a brilliant P6 ahead of the Aston Martin of Fleddy. Daniele did some damage limitation after that horrible qualifying session that he had, finishes in P8. And that was quite an exciting second stint, I'm not going to lie. I did not expect that to happen after that first stint.
No, that was a fantastic end to that race, and well done to both the top 2. Daniel looked like he had it under control, but even right at the end there, he still had that nervy moment. And but for me, I have to say, and Slinky P2 and with the fastest lap, if I had to give a driver of the day, I would have to say Slinky, because I did not think those mediums would hang on so well at the end, but he did a mega job to bring P2 home.
The stadium usually is a bit more filled than it is on this game, but anyways, I think Daniel won't mind all too much. He'll still like that top step off the podium here, which he got by only just 0.3 of a second Slinky, for good measure, also took the fastest lap home with him. So that turns his 12 points into 13, actually. After this race, we had no safety car, by the way, which has not appeared all too often this season. Nico then with the P3 and Kart Racer with the P4, 1.1 seconds of the race winner. Just to round up those top 10 that I didn't mention at the end of the race, Diogo Silva picked up a 9th, 22 seconds behind our race winner, and Slash picked up the final point position. Daniele, Diogo Silva and Slash all started from 16th, 17th and 18th. Didn't have the greatest qualifying session, but in the end they managed to pick up some points, which is always a good sign. But I have to agree with you. I think Slinky will be my driver of the day, because the way he managed those medium tyres and that undercut of 2 laps, he did that very, very well. And in the end, to still be fighting with Nico for that race win, even though he had 2-lap older tyres and all that pressure from behind as well. He did a very, very good job to keep Nico's heart rate quite high all the way until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Francesco and Slinky were advised by the engineers, I'm guessing in their esports team, but the undercut doesn't work here. They might want to go and talk to Slinky again after that one, because he's definitely proved them wrong. And yeah, that's probably for McLaren's best evening of the season. P2 and P5 in the end is a great result for them. And yeah, really good race in the end, to say that usually Mexico isn't one of my favourites. But yeah, good to see a great evening's entertainment, and I'm excited to do it all again next week when we head to Zandvoort.
Is it Zandvoort? I thought it was Hungary. Oh, then I read
Wait
it
a minute.
wrong.
Wait a minute. It is Hungary. I can't read flags.
Okay. I thought it was me. But then, yeah, it is Hungary. Hungary usually there for some rainy sessions, but the pattern suggests differently. So we're up for a dry race next week. And then afterwards, we only have 2 rounds left at Saudi Arabia and Brazil. Brazil, for me, the best possible championship decider, the best possible final race. But sadly, in real life, we'll have Abu Dhabi. In PSGL, though, we have Brazil, luckily, and I think we're on for 3 very good race tracks in terms of action that are coming up now, even though Jeddah is not my favorite track to drive on and doesn't look too much like a racetrack, in my opinion, but usually it creates some excitement, and I hope you guys will be back next week when we head to Hungary, to Budapest, the capital city of Hungary, for what will hopefully be another exciting race with a 5-4 race win. Now the kart racer has lost his podium streak, I'm pretty sure he's willing to return to the top step of the podium next week. But you have to find out and tune in next week if Jake doesn't have anything to add.
No, but I'm going to work on my geography in between now and next week, so I don't prematurely excite the Dutch fans that are tuning in again.
Yeah, I think some of those guys who were watching would have loved to see Zandvoort, but I'm very sorry. It's a bit more to the east of Europe. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I hope you will tune in next week once again at 7 p.m. UK time on Monday. And make sure to check out the other streams. Make sure to check out PSGL on Twitter as well. And if you're interested in joining the PSGL leagues, then just feel free to join the Discord to apply for a seat in either the PC or PlayStation division. With that being said, that is everything from us tonight. I hope to see you next week. And with that being said,